Good. We've all been there, haven't we? A fleeting thought, a persistent memory, or even a random moment that suddenly brings someone vividly to life in your mind. And as days pass, you realize they're always there. They linger in your thoughts, even when there's no text, no call, no message, no tangible connection. What does it mean? Today, let's unpack this tender human experience and explore the profound layers it reveals about ourselves, relationships, and emotional connection. Our minds are truly fascinating in how they operate, constantly striving to make sense of the world around us. They are meaning-making machines designed to decode experiences, connect dots, and assign significance to everything we encounter. This innate ability is both a gift and a challenge, especially when it comes to human relationships. When someone is persistently on your mind despite the lack of communication, it's your brain trying to weave together fragments of memory, emotion, and intuition into a coherent narrative. Think about it. We're not wired to simply observe life passively. Every interaction, every shared moment, and even every silence carries a weight that our minds attempt to process. When someone leaves an impression on us, whether fleeting or profound, they become a part of our mental landscape. There's something deeply profound about the way emotional resonance works. It's a quiet, intangible force that doesn't rely on physical presence to make itself known. When someone occupies your thoughts, even in their absence, it's a reflection of the deep emotional imprint they've left on you. It's as though a piece of who they are has intertwined with your own sense of self, becoming part of the fabric of your inner world. This kind of connection is extraordinary because it defies the boundaries of time and space. You don't need to see them, hear their voice, or share the same room to feel their presence. It's their essence, who they are at their core, that lingers with you. Maybe it's the way they made you feel seen, understood, or valued. Perhaps it's a particular moment you shared that resonates so strongly it has etched itself into your memory. Whatever the reason, this connection becomes a thread that ties you to them, even in silence. What makes emotional resonance so powerful is that it exists beyond the tangible. It's not about words exchanged or actions performed. It's about the energy between two people, an unspoken understanding that can transcend even the most profound physical distance. Think about how a song, a scent, or a familiar setting can suddenly bring someone rushing back into your mind. It's not the object itself that holds the power, it's the emotional tie to that person that breathes life into it. This phenomenon reminds us that relationships are not confined to the boundaries of physical interaction. Emotional resonance allows a bond to persist even when there is no direct communication. It shows us that connection is as much about feeling as it is about doing. And this feeling can be as vivid as the moments we physically spend with someone, sometimes even more so. When someone remains in your thoughts, it's a testament to the lasting impact they've had on you. It's a reminder that meaningful connections don't simply fade because they're out of sight. Instead, they linger because they've touched a part of you that words cannot fully express. It's in this space that true connection thrives, a quiet, enduring presence that doesn't require proximity to feel real and significant. When someone lingers in your mind without any active communication, it reflects more than just the bond you share with them. It reveals your vulnerability. Unspoken connections are powerful because they tap into our deepest emotional truths, laying bare the parts of ourselves we often try to guard or protect. They mirror the delicate nature of the human heart, showing us the courage it takes to care deeply for someone, even in the absence of reciprocity or reassurance. Outside of yourself and outside of the experience is a willingness to feel, to allow someone to matter to you without conditions. This is an act of vulnerability because it exposes your heart to uncertainty. There's no guarantee that the other person is thinking of you, no assurance that they share your longing or reflection, and yet they occupy your mind because your emotions have carved out a space for them. Vulnerability isn't about weakness, it's about strength, the kind of strength that comes from being open to connection, even when it feels one-sided or incomplete. Think about how often we protect ourselves from emotional risks in our daily lives. We avoid reaching out for fear of rejection, hold back our feelings to maintain control, or keep ourselves busy to avoid confronting what we truly feel. But unspoken connections bypass these defenses. They live in the quiet spaces of our minds, where logic and control take a back seat to raw emotion. Remind us that we are human, that our capacity to care is not dictated by convenience or certainty, but by the depth of our emotional truth. This kind of vulnerability is a gift, even though it can feel uncomfortable or even painful. It's a reminder that you are alive, that your heart is capable of forming bonds that transcend words or actions. It also sheds light on what you value most in relationships, be it understanding, intimacy, or simply the presence of someone who makes you feel seen and valued. Unspoken connections are also a reflection of hope. To think of someone in their absence is to hold on to the possibility of connection, even if it feels distant or unreachable. It's a quiet acknowledgement that their presence, whether past or potential, holds meaning for you. This hope is what keeps you open to love and connection, even in the face of uncertainty. Moreover, these moments of vulnerability can teach us something about ourselves. They encourage introspection, urging us to examine the source of our emotions and what they reveal about our desires, fears, and needs. Maybe the person you're thinking about represents a part of yourself you want to nurture. Perhaps they bring to light a longing for connection or a fear of abandonment. In this way, unspoken connections not only mirror your vulnerability, but also guide you toward greater self-awareness. Ultimately, to have someone persist in your thoughts without communication is to embrace the beautiful uncertainty of relationships. It is to stand in the space between presence and absence, holding on to the belief that the emotions you feel are valid regardless of their outcome. This vulnerability is not something to shy away from. It is something to cherish, for it is a testament to the depth and courage of your heart. When someone is absent from your life but continues to occupy your thoughts, the silence between you becomes an open canvas, ready to be filled by your mind. In the absence of communication, the human brain often steps in to fill the void, crafting narratives, imagining scenarios, and projecting feelings onto that empty space. Silence in this way becomes a fertile ground for our thoughts, emotions, and unresolved questions to take root and grow. This process of projection is entirely natural. Our brains are storytelling machines wired to seek understanding and resolution. When someone leaves a mark on us, our thoughts can't simply dismiss them when their presence fades. Instead, our minds work overtime to piece together fragments of memory, emotion, and perception, often painting vivid mental pictures of who they are, what they might be thinking, or how they might feel. This isn't just idle daydreaming, it's an effort to make sense of the connection we feel in the face of ambiguity. The tricky part is that silence doesn't provide boundaries or limitations. It's a blank slate. And because of this, it allows us to project our hopes, fears, and assumptions freely. Perhaps you replay old conversations, assigning new meaning to their words. Maybe you imagine how they might react to something you said or did. Or perhaps you even construct entire interactions that never happened but feel emotionally real. This process isn't just about the other person. It's a reflection of your inner world and what you're carrying emotionally. And so projection in silence can be comforting because it allows us to maintain a connection even if it's one-sided. It gives us a way to keep that person present in our lives even when they're physically or communicatively absent. But it can also be misleading. The narratives we create in silence are shaped by our own emotions, insecurities, and desires. They're not necessarily reflective of reality, and this can lead to misunderstandings or even unnecessary heartache. At the same time, the way we project onto silence can reveal profound truths about ourselves. For example, if you find yourself imagining that the person is angry or disappointed with you, it might indicate underlying guilt or self-doubt that you're grappling with. If you envision them thinking fondly of you or longing for your presence, it could point to your own desires for validation or connection. In this way, the silence becomes a mirror, reflecting not just your feelings about the other person, but also your relationship with yourself. Silence also has the power to amplify unresolved emotions. Without the closure that communication can provide, your mind may circle back to moments of ambiguity or uncertainty, replaying them in an attempt to find clarity. This can be both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, it allows you to reflect deeply on what the connection meant to you. On the other hand, it can trap you in a loop of overthinking and second guessing, especially if the silence feels indefinite or final. To navigate this space, it's important to approach the silence with mindfulness and self-compassion. Acknowledge the emotions and thoughts that arise, but don't let them completely define your understanding of the situation. Remind yourself that the stories your mind creates in the absence of communication are just that, stories. They may hold elements of truth, but they are also colored by your own perspective, shaped by what you hope for or fear. Ultimately, silence is a powerful force, both expansive and uncertain. It challenges us to confront the weight of our emotions, the gaps in our understanding, and the vulnerability of our connections. While it can be tempting to fill this space with assumptions or projections, silence also offers an opportunity to pause, reflect, and accept the limits of what we know. In this acceptance, we can find a kind of peace, allowing ourselves to honor the connection we feel without being consumed by the stories we create in its absence. When someone occupies your thoughts persistently, even without any communication, it's easy to assume it's all about them, their actions, their words, their absence. But often the truth is much more reflective. Sometimes it's not about them at all. It's about us. It's about what they represent, the emotions they awaken, and the unspoken truths they bring to the surface of our hearts and minds. Human connections are complex, and the way someone lingers in our thoughts can be deeply tied to our inner world rather than the external reality of the relationship. The person who occupies your mind might symbolize something greater than themselves, a need, a longing, or even an unresolved part of your past. They might embody qualities you admire, things you aspire to, or aspects of your own identity that you're trying to better understand. In this way, the focus shifts from who they are to what they mean to you on a deeper level. For instance, someone who reminds you of a time when you felt truly happy or secure might not just represent themselves, but also the sense of comfort or joy you're yearning for in your current life. Similarly, someone who challenges you emotionally might reflect a part of yourself you're working to grow or heal. In these cases, the significance of the person in your mind has less to do with their presence or actions and more to do with your emotional journey. This phenomenon also ties into our personal history and how we process relationships. Past experiences shape how we perceive and respond to people in the present. If someone reminds you of a past love, a mentor, or even a family member, your thoughts about them might be colored by the emotions tied to those earlier connections. And the lens from which you view other people and relationships is very similar. So it is really easy to see people based on emotions and reactions. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural part of how we navigate relationships. But it's essential to recognize when our thoughts are more about what we're carrying than about the person themselves. Sometimes the way someone occupies your mind highlights unmet needs or unresolved feelings within yourself. If their absence stirs feelings of loneliness, it might point to a deeper longing for connection or community in your life. If thinking of them brings up frustration or sadness, it could reveal wounds or insecurities that need attention and care. These emotions are not about the other person's actions or intentions. They are reflections of your inner state, your desires, and your fears. This isn't to say that the connection itself isn't meaningful or real. The people who stay in our minds do so for a reason. But it's important to understand that their significance is often intertwined with our personal narrative. By focusing inward, we can begin to unpack why this person holds such a place in our thoughts. What do they represent? What do they bring up in you? What can you learn from the way they make you feel? When we approach these questions with curiosity and self-compassion, we can transform what feels like a fixation on another person into a powerful opportunity for self-discovery. Instead of viewing their presence in your mind as a mystery to be solved or a connection to be rekindled, you can see it as an invitation to explore your own heart. What do you truly want? What are you missing? How can you nurture yourself in ways that don't rely on their presence? By shifting the focus inward, you reclaim your agency. The person on your mind no longer holds power over you. Instead, their presence becomes a catalyst for growth and understanding. You begin to see that the connection, while meaningful, is only one part of a larger journey, your journey. And in recognizing this, you can honor their role in your life while also prioritizing your own emotional well-being. Ultimately, when someone is on your mind and you realize it's more about you than about them, it's an act of self-awareness. It's a chance to delve into your desires, confront your fears, and embrace your vulnerability. This doesn't diminish the connection you feel for them. It enhances your ability to understand yourself and grow through the experience. And that in itself is a beautiful and empowering realization. Love is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience, and it exists in forms as varied and unique as the people who feel it. When someone lingers in your thoughts, despite the lack of communication, it's often love in some shape or form that is making itself known. Love doesn't rely solely on spoken words, physical presence, or grand gestures. Its essence transcends these things. It finds its way into the quiet corners of our minds, weaving through memories, emotions, and the intangible threads that connect us to others. Love is not confined to romantic relationships or the traditional expressions we often associate with it. It can manifest as deep admiration, gratitude, or even a sense of inspiration that someone has brought into your life. When someone occupies your thoughts, it might be because they've left a part of themselves with you. A kindness they showed, a lesson they taught, or a moment you shared that shifted something within you. These fragments of connection are love in its simplest, most enduring form. Even in the absence of communication, love has a way of staying alive. It thrives in the intangible, living in the memories that surface when you hear a song, see something that reminds you of them, or find yourself drawn to a feeling they once evoked. Love doesn't need constant reinforcement to exist. It has a resilience that allows it to persist, even in silence. This kind of love is subtle, yet profound. It doesn't demand attention, but it quietly makes its presence felt in your heart. There's also a unique beauty in the way love adapts to circumstances. Sometimes it's a tender ache, a longing for connection that remains unspoken. Other times, it's a quiet appreciation for the impact someone has had on your life. It might even be a bittersweet acknowledgement of the way they've shaped your understanding of yourself and the world around you. Love, in these forms, isn't bound by the constraints of time or distance. It flows freely, finding its way into the spaces between words and the moments of stillness in our lives. Love is also deeply personal. The way it feels, the way it stays with you, and the way it influences your thoughts are all reflections of who you are. It's a mirror of your capacity to care, to connect, and to hold space for others in your life. Even when the person isn't physically present, their presence in your mind is a testament to the depth of your emotional experience. It's not about needing them to be there, it's about recognizing the impact they've had and the way their essence continues to resonate within you. There's something profoundly human about the way love endures, even without external validation. It doesn't require reciprocation to be real. It doesn't fade simply because the lines of communication have gone quiet. Instead, it transforms, finding subtle ways to remain part of your life. It might be a sense of warmth when you think of them, or a flicker of inspiration that arises when you remember something they said or did. These moments are proof that love is not limited to action. It exists in being, in essence, and in memory. Love in its purest form doesn't seek control or certainty. It doesn't need to be loud or obvious. It's in the quiet, unassuming places where it humbly resides without demanding recognition. It doesn't rely on proximity or constant reminders. It exists because it's woven into the fabric of who we are. Even in silence, it finds ways to remind us of its presence, whispering through our thoughts and feelings in ways we can't always explain, but undoubtedly feel. The threads of connection that tie us to others are intricate and profound, often extending beyond words, actions, or proximity. When someone lingers in our thoughts without communication, it reveals the depth of our capacity to feel, to project, to hope, and to reflect. It shows how our minds and hearts work in tandem, creating meaning, nurturing bonds, and navigating the uncertainties of silence. These experiences are as much about us as they are about the other person. They remind us of our vulnerability, our need for connection, and our ability to carry love in its many forms. They challenge us to look inward, to understand ourselves better, and to honor the emotional truths that surface in the quiet spaces of our lives. Whether driven by longing, admiration, or unresolved emotions, these moments invite us to embrace the complexities of being human, to cherish the beauty of connection, even when it feels incomplete. Ultimately, the presence of someone in our thoughts is a testament to the way relationships, in all their nuances, shape us. It's a reminder that love Meaning and connection are not confined to physical interaction. They live on in memory, emotion, and the narratives we weave within ourselves. These lingering thoughts are not just a reflection of the other person, but also a profound expression of who we are and the stories we continue to tell about the bonds that matter most.